so no worries, right? Yeah, the team setup. Well, you can add team members to your project, give them different, the different standard roles. And if the standard roles are not enough, or if you would like to see what those roles actually can do, you can go to the role settings and then see the permissions for them, or you can create new roles with your custom permission settings, right? So that is also pretty easy to do, and there's a security guide for you to reference to. Documents is self-explanatory. I think it's a documents repository, and then there's the team server. So what does it do? So here all the technical updates are posted. So whenever you do a commit, so people among us who are familiar with the Git repository and the working method around it, they will find it very familiar. So here, the team server hosts the main line of your project, and whenever you have a new update, you can do a new commit, basically change to a project, you push to the main line, you will see that here with the comments that you have made. And then under general settings, you will see everything you need to manage your app towards the public. So for example, cloud settings, right? Access management. Here, once you deploy your app, you will find the access link to your app. Right? So the apps we create, as I mentioned, are web apps. So they are not immediately available in Apple's App Store or Google's, what is it called, Android's Play Store, right? So those web apps are just for sharing by a link, and they look and feel like a interactive website, but they're apps because you fumble with data here. Right? You can also add API keys and other project management settings, but more on that is something for you to explore yourself, right? And once deployed, you can also use the manage your environments here. So yeah. So right now, my app only lives as I float around on an AWS cloud, which is the Mendix cloud right now. And once you deploy it, you'll deploy your app to a sandbox, right? And if you have actually a cloud node, you can also manage your environments, being testing, QA, if another environment you want, and production, right? So here you can then push your products from testing to the various productivity levels that you need, and also to the security settings and API credentials here if you want. The metrics, you can see how your app behaves while running, and also you can select different environments. Please mute yourself. I can't hear my own thoughts. Okay, I'll go ahead and mute you. Yeah, as right now you only see a screenshot, so that's not really a real thing. But yeah, once you actually run your app live, then you can also see that. Right? Logs, backups, alerts. That's all in there. And if you have mobile navigation profile enabled, or if you actually do a mobile native app, yes, that is also possible. You can see the settings for mobile app here. All right, that is about the developer portal or the project management environment. Let's have a look at the current app itself, right? So you will see the, let's go to Studio Pro right away. Yeah. Still asking me if I always want to open it with the version selector. So if you have multiple Mendix versions installed, Mendix will always ask you to have the version selector, and the version selector then gives you a range of, shows you all the range, all the Mendix versions that you've installed, and you will be able to select the right version. But one thing to keep in mind, if you create a Mendix app in a particular Mendix version, you can only open that with the same or a later version of Mendix, but not an earlier version. Why? Because Mendix usually introduces new patches additional features in newer versions that are not backwards compatible, right? Which means once you convert your project to a newer version, there's no way back. This is, however, also true for all the other local platforms, right? So keep that in mind. Always align with your team on the same Mendix version, and you're good. You're good. Otherwise, yeah, you might be converting your Mendix project all the time. Okay, so this is the Mendix Studio Pro. We have, yeah, on the left, the App Explorer. This is basically, it shows you the index or the structure of your app. We have the app level settings, right? So here, app level means the entire, the master setting for the entire project. Then you have the system module. Actually, you probably can't see it, but what's interesting here is the app level, the master settings are blocked, and then all subsequent modules, right? Those are called modules. They have a Lego piece as a symbol. Just a fun fact. And here you have the system module, which contains all the basic functionalities to ensure that your app runs, that you can do all the things that are associated with low code, no code. And it also contains all the standard databases, for example, the user database, or anything you need to create accounts or administer the users in your app. And yeah, it's also grayed out, so don't touch that, don't change that, right? But you can reference to this later on in your project. And then this is your first module. So it always called first module. Do rename that module if you want, and you should, for it to be more recognizable. And yeah, so here you have the first page that's auto generated for you. It already has the Atlas UI, the standard homepage set up. Right? So this Mendix dark blue setting, and you have the different types of end devices that you can develop on or develop for at the same time, but also separately. Right, because what you do, the adjustments you do on mobile won't affect the adjustments on tablet or desktop. Right. On the right-hand side, you find the toolbox. So whenever you click on something, especially in the pages, right? When you create UX, UI UX elements, you always have those widgets that help you create or structure your app very easily. And there's a large range of things you can choose from. Always use the search button for keywords that you may find useful for your current use case, and then you'll find the things that you need. And if you would like to save some more time, also browse through what the building blocks do for you, because building blocks are basic widgets on steroids, basically. Right? They have additional features to them, and yeah, they also come with additional fancy things. So yeah, that is something to keep in mind as well. Also, I mentioned there's a marketplace, right? So the marketplace is accessible to this shopping cart, and you can search for for widgets, themes, modules, basically something like this, right? Entire feature packages, layouts, right? UI resources, and so on. And to connectors you need for example, connecting to data centers or data sources, or data for SAP solutions, for example. We also have MQTT connector. So go ahead and browse a little bit yourself, right, to get familiar with the capabilities. So yeah, that is what I really encourage you to do. So when you open up to 9.12.4, you can also close the connectors you can have. So this is a mapping of data connections within your app, so not to be confused with these connectors, which are marketplace modules. But the data hub you can close, because that is something you need an extra license for. And properties, what does this thing do? Well, whenever you click on an element, yeah, for example, this text, right? You'll immediately see all these properties, and you can do this settings either here, or if you double click on that, the properties will pop out as a more extensive editor box editor pop-up, right? You also do that, can do the appearance here, and then the resulting appearance settings will be showing up as those CSS classes. All right. Yeah, and down below you see a breadcrumb of your app structure, right? You can also switch between design mode and structure mode. Design mode is basically this kind of what you see is what you get kind of IDE, and the structure mode helps you see how your app is actually structured internally. So most likely you will need that to actually create connections between front end and back end. So usually what you will do is you will first set up a database. You create an entity in here just by dragging the entity box here. So this is basically a class as you know it. It's just called entity in Mendix language. And then you can double click on it, add attributes to it. I'll just do it for something very mundane here. I'll define its data type, right? So limitations, and this is a calculator, it's stored, and then to set default values and so on, right? So once you have the database in the background, you can then go ahead to to the front end, right? And then say, hey, I want a connection from this page to that database. So drag a data container here, and then double click on that. You select the data source, right? So in this case, we can just select the entity path, the database we just created, and then we click on OK, and then we can fill the data. So if we want, we can automatically fill the entire space with the content of the database, but we can also do more customized things. Right? So for example, if we want to display a particular text, right, from that entity, from that database, we then just drag a text widget in here, double click on this, and then select what we want to, what kind of parameters we want to use. So we want to use the attribute from that database, right? And then we just simply click on the attribute that's been displayed for us, because we already know that this is the only entity we created. We use the only attribute that is there, and and that's it, right? We then just reference this like this, and we have dynamic data enabled. So what this will show is basically an attribute that is stored in this entity. So the first element that this database contains, right? So you can also list an entire table, right? So you can use the list view to display the entire table of the database. But this is all things that you can explore later on. The basic front principle is just that easy, right? So you use a data container on a page to connect front end to the back end. That's it. And there are way more things that you can do with it. Also use standard buttons that already have functionalities with them, and create microflows that are basically that show you how to create custom actions to create the flow of actions you need. All right. More on that tomorrow, but let's have a look at the slides again, right? So this gives you a more structured way of approaching the content. So when we work with Mendix, we also have this kind of version management, right? So here, as I mentioned, we can always post new or push new changes to the mainline. But actually, how do you do the change? So we have the mainline and the team server, right? And whenever you open up the project on your local machine on your Mendix Studio Pro, right, then you basically create a download, a working copy, if you may, and and then you do your magic, create the changes, and then you commit to the mainline again. And this is how you create a new version of your project, right? So, and then the team server or the mainline knows that there's new change being committed. And what does your team do? In this case, you would then go to the changes section in this command window down below, and then click on update. Right, and once you click on update, you will see what your teammates have done, and then yeah, you can see the changes right here. Right, and your commit is also once you're done with your current changes, you can commit. Right. Oh, by the way, stories you see here. So we opened the project, but we can also refresh our story section to have the story imported. Okay, don't know why it's not working right now. But yeah, what it should do is it should open the, so it should reflect what's here, right? And then also show up, show the stories that we should be working on right now. Probably, yeah, it's running actually. Okay, seems to be a small bug right here. Nothing to be concerned by. In case you encounter bugs like this, right, you can always go to Mendix support and submit a ticket and say, hey, Mendix, something on your platform is not working. So go on this, go to this question mark, and then click on contact Mendix support, and you will then see yeah, this help page, right? You submit a request, yeah, create incident, and then state your case, right? So that'll be it. I'll submit a ticket later because yeah, this story thing should be working. Yeah, so that is about working with the developer portal, right? So everything is actually in sync, or should be in sync with the developer portal. Even when you work offline and when you connect to the internet, you should be able to synchronize the yeah, the stories, the changes, and everything. All right, then importing data, right? That is basically the foundation of how you work with an app. I mean, you can always create an app using empty from scratch, also with zero data, but you also want to have, so if you have data out there, you don't want to manually input them, right? So you want to connect your app to a database, and that is through connectors, right? So I already mentioned that there are a bunch of connectors in the marketplace. What you see right here is a small section of it. Where you can find more on the marketplace, really. And yeah, it's for you to explore, right? And what you will do then is you'll create web service integration. Yeah, so once you use the connector, you can then import the data by creating a yeah, import mapping, right? And import mapping will basically reflect the data structure of your target or source system outside, and create the data model in your app. No code needed in this step. And when you go through the exercises, you also know how you also learn how to do that yourself. Then storing data, right? I already showed you that the database layer is comprised of those yeah, entities, and together they form the domain model, right? What I didn't show is that you can also create relationships between entities. They're called associations, and yeah, and you can also put in define ownership directions, one to many, many to many relationships. Right? So multiplicities also can also be set, and you can also set the delete behavior. Right. So for example, right now, if you for example, if you want to delete a shift, you probably don't want to delete the associated department with it. So in this case, you can also set the delete behavior by double clicking on that association. Right, so what you know from university, this kind of UML notation, right? It's no longer just a means to write down or draw out ideas. It's actually a developing language now. So that is pretty neat. And what you also encounter is, or make use of, are persistent and non-persistent entities. Persistent entities are, well, basically hold permanent changes, and they are always committed to the database. And non-persistent entities are there to help you increase performance. As for example, think of a shopping cart that could be abandoned. Right, you don't want to commit the changes to a shopping cart every time a user, adds or removes an item out of the shopping cart, just to abandon it later on. Right. So if you use persistent entity, you will be facing some performance issues if you have an online shop that has tens of thousands of users every day. So you would then create non-persistent entities, right, which stores everything just in memory. Right, it's faster to display the data as well, and in those cases, you will just increase the performance by a lot. And in Mendix Studio Pro, you would just go to the domain model and drag a new entity in here, right? And then you say, is it persistible? No, right? And then it turns it into this non-persistible entity, and that's it, right? It comes with a few limitations. You can see it here in this table, right? So by the way, you also get the slides later on. So by the way, if you go to the partner sign up platform where you sign up for this course, right, which should be here, you will see the current course. And if you go to the where's the current course? I have this one. You can find the day one documents, handout day one, and you can download it, and you get all the slides as well, right? So getting back to the main story. So those entities, persistent and non-persistent entities, you can also work with. And so in this following slide, you can see what happens in the background, right? So everything that you create in terms of this kind of class diagram format, it actually opens up a PostgreSQL database in the background. So it's actually a data table. And also the reverse way is the same principle, right? If you have a database, if you have a data table and you want to import that data structure into your app, it will be converted to such a domain model structure, right? So each domain model, so each entity is a data table, as you can see, where the attributes are the columns. And so in the background, this is the kind of code that you can expect that is automatically generated for you, or just how you would usually write in terms of code. And so that is how it works in the background. And we have in total 3 layers. We have the data layer, so that's where the databases or data imports happen. Then we have the business layer, so this is where we'll be creating the microflows. And then the UI layer, this is where all the front-end interactions happen with the user, with the end user, right? And that front end is created using CSS3 and HTML5, and exists for all the kinds of device types. And except for wearables, probably. We haven't tested it out, to be honest, if the layouts work on wearables, but if you feel like it, you could try. Right. So what else is there to say about the front end? Well, it's generally there to manage data, and to configure the front end, you'll be working with the templating engine of Mendix. Right. So as I said, it's based on CSS HTML5, and the functionalities, like the activities, they are based on JavaScript. And later on, you'll also get to know a very cool feature that allows you to do a lot of mobile native stuff in a web app, right? Which is built based on JavaScript, and that is called nanoflows. But more on that on day 2 of this course. And we have a lot of templates, right? So I just showed you some templates, but here within the IDE, you're also working with templates. Right, so these are the Atlas UI templates, for example, to the standard pages, layouts, and so on that you can expect coming out of the box. But you can also define your own using CSS. And make sure to always use layout grid. That's this fella right here. Layout grid, right? That helps you structure your app in a way that that you can put your elements in a tidier way, right? You can then, for example, drag the data widget into this section, right? So you can also display things side by side. And it's also it uses CSS flexboxing method, so you can adjust it very flexibly without typing any code in there. Yeah, and one more thing, definitely always follow the naming conventions when you create new Mendix pages. That being how to name them in this App Explorer. Right? This is for yourself and your fellow developers to understand what a particular page does without really opening it. Makes the communication in the project much more efficient. And you can find all the naming conventions in that best practices page I sent you earlier. When you edit a page, you'll mostly using the toolbox and properties windows, right? So I already showed you that. Right now, this screenshot is a little bit outdated. With Mendix 9.12, we already have those bigger icons for the widgets. It's a change in taste in R&D, I guess. And yeah. And then page components, I already mentioned widgets and building blocks. So basically, building blocks are widgets with extra features, right? You can also use widgets to create your own building blocks. And just to show you an example, right? Example pair. So the basic widget will be the list view that allows you to show display the contents from a database in the listed manner. And building block comes with additional optional buttons and already standard text pre-formatted basically for you, so that each line has this format. And so a title that is bold and a subtitle that is not bold, and an additional button for you to jump to a different page, for example, to perform additional actions to save you more time, right? The data context is set through the data containers. We already saw them, right? And this is for you to create the connection between front end and back end. Why there are different data containers? Well, this depends on how you want to display your data, right? So it's for single objects, you just display the data view. For multiple objects, you use the list view. If you want to display a table to mimic the look and feel of Excel, which is still very often used, but I'm not a fan of it. And so in those cases, you would use the data grid, that one, and list view and data grid, they also come with their out of the box buttons, the functionalities that you can use to delete objects, add new objects, and so on. And also search bar is always there, pretty cool. And template grid for multiple objects and templated display. Well, that is also something exciting, I leave for you to explore. So if all of those things are not enough for you, you can also style your own pages using CSS, or in Mendix, actually, it's SAS, a language based on CSS, and you can edit that in here on the on the master settings of your app, right? So in the styling section, you can have the native and web app of CSS files, and you can actually edit them right here. Right, so that is pretty cool. And yeah, so if you are if you prefer to do things this way, yeah, go ahead. But you can actually solve 99% or 95% of the theming problems using this layout grid and the standard widgets and standard templates that you see in Mendix out of the box. All right. So let's talk about the use case for the exercise. So we'll be creating a shift management app for Summerhill Hospital. Right. The goal is to create a single source of truth for everybody in the hospital staff, that is, and it should allow automatic planning, meaning that business rules should be carried out without manually updating Excel sheets. Yeah. It should be a decentralized system, so if multiple user types will be using that app, right? So here we'll be talking about security, and the overall goal is to allow people to easily switch shifts, right? Yeah, this exercise was actually created before Corona. We didn't know that it would actually have such a relevance these days, but yeah. This is the use case, and you'll find the use case in the learning path. So if you go to Mendix Academy, right? Mendix Academy is the page where you get all the learnings in, and we'll be going to the learning path, and we'll go to the crash course right here, right? This is the part where you can follow along. You can then go to academy.mendix.com, go to learning path, and then find the crash course. And what we've already covered in this first 1.5 hours, or actually 1 hour, is the first 2.5 sections, right? And we also covered the theory for the chapters 3, 4, 5, 6. So what I want you to do is go to the Mendix, go to the crash course, open up the third chapter, and then start from here, right? So 3.3.1, create your first app. For those of you who just joined, you probably need to go through all that. It is important to join the class on time, because we will be having a very limited time for classroom interactions, but this is it, right? So you want to go to 3.3.1, create your first app, and then you'll be guided once again through the process of creating the app, right? And then and then you follow the exercises until those chapter 6 if you can, right? So that is a lot. That is a lot, not gonna lie. But you can make it. And if you have questions, right? If you have questions along the way, do visit Mendix Docs. So this is where you find a lot of additional guidance for development. Don't worry, right now I just have this automatic page translation on. It's not in German. It's in English by default. And also check out Mendix forum. Probably people have asked the same questions as you did in the past. And if all that doesn't help, we have this Miro board here. I'll send you this link right away. So this is the where's the chat? So this is the link we will be using to post questions in class. Right? So if you still have questions that need to be answered, this is where you post them. So just to walk you through the UX of this, if you have never worked with Miro board, so if you click and drag things with left mouse, don't do that. So you can move things around. To move around the board, to see different parts of the board, you right click and hold, and then drag. Right, so you right click and drag, and then your mouse turns into this little hand that allows you to move things around. Yeah, all right. You see, easy, right? And to create post-its, like everyone here has done before, just simply click use a sticky note. Right, avoid the color green because that's my color, and you can use anything else, right? And then post your questions in there, like question 1, and then I'll have a look later on, or the other fellow trainer who is currently dealing with the Apex session can also help, right? Please do not move questions already in there, because we prefer them to be grouped in the same way. in the current way, so they're easy to reference to. Right. So when you just want to look at things, use zoom, right? If you use your scroll wheel on your mouse, you can zoom in, yeah, almost infinitely. Okay, to an almost unnecessary degree. Yeah, just don't drag things around, please. Right? Put it back, please. All right. Good. Any questions? Okay. If that's not the case, then I'll leave you to it. So go to the Crash Course Learning Path 3.3.1 and start the exercises. Right? You have all the support mechanisms with you at your disposal, and we will be meeting again tomorrow, same time at 9 o'clock Berlin time in the morning. I don't know what time is this in your case, but yeah, join the course on time. We'll be dealing with some more exciting stuff tomorrow. All right? Good. Yeah, I think that was the first day, first classroom interaction. You guys have been great. You asked a lot of questions. Oh, okay. I do see a lot of questions in the chat. Let me go through. William, you asked, could you please link for ease of access? What do you mean?
The link's been supplied. The link's been supplied, so it's all good. Just the 3.3.1 use case link.
Okay. Yeah. I don't think I can reference to the particular chapter. Can I? Yeah, but
it's
I
okay.
think
Another participants linked what I was after. So if anyone needs it, it's just there.
Yeah, okay, I see it below now. Yeah. Thank you. And could you please share the use case document /link? The document is the exercise. So by the way, I think that answers your question. Right? So you already have everything you need for the exercises. Now it's about going through the exercises as fast as you can. Try to think about what we already talked about in this course while you do the exercises, and yeah, don't be afraid to also try something else, right? There are always multiple ways to reach a solution, right? And as you proceed, the more you try out, the more you learn. Right. Good. Then see you guys tomorrow, same time, and yeah, have fun with the exercises. Bye bye. Oh, and you can leave the call because if you prefer to do the exercise in silence, just leave the call. There are no more call interactions today. Right? Okay. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Thank you.